Welcome to part 6 of this time tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to break apart an object using the tool fracture. Now I'm using the time_2 file instead of the time_3 file, which was the one where we unwrapped objects and then textured them in Photoshop. This one I'm actually using the procedural file, so that way those of you who didn't want to do that can continue on. Now there is one thing that we need to change. And let me jump into solid mode. Select the front face here. I'm going to hit Shift H. Now, if you did tutorial 5, you don't need to do what we're about to do, but if you didn't, you definitely need to do it. So there's a little bit of an error around the inside edge here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is go into wireframe mode. And let's go into edit mode so you can see it. Okay, so see this right here, this little gray edge, that's overlapping polygons right now. All right, so let me go into edge mode, select this edge, and I'll jump back to solid, just so let's stay in edit mode, jump to solid view, and just so you can see this, see? Overlapping edges. Not a good thing. So let me go back to wireframe, and I'm going to hold down Alt and click on the edge, so I can select the edge all the way around, all right? And let me zoom out to about there. I'm going to switch over to solid mode, and I'm going to hit S on the keyboard so I can scale it up and frame it just like that. Okay, so now if I click on this edge and move it around, I've got no overlapping edges or vertices, and that would have caused a huge problem with fracturing this object. So if you watched part 5, you probably already fixed it. If you didn't watch part 5, you definitely need to still fix that. And yours may not have it, or yours might be directly on top of each other. So just check this edge right here. All right, so I did. Okay, so moving forward, that's done. Let me go into out of edit mode to object mode. I'm going to hit Alt H, so I unhide all. Now, before we go any further, let's save this file as file save as, and we're going to save it as 4. Now, my 3 accidentally got deleted, so I'm going to put 4 here because I know 3 should still be there. I'm going to go try to find it later. So time 4 and click Save Blender File. All right, and this just keeps you from destroying some of the work you've already done when you're testing new things like the fracture tool. We're going to break this piece up so we can use the fracture tool on it. I don't want to use the fracture tool on the whole thing, just sections. So I'm going to select it and come into edit mode and also go into wireframe mode. All right, so I can tell where the sprockets are at and see the front backside parts of the polygons. Let's go into polygon mode and hit C on the keyboard, which is the circle select, which allows me to paint my selection. I'm going to increase my brush size by the scroll wheel and then decrease it to get a little bit more refined. Hold down Shift to deselect. All right, and then Shift to add to the selection. Okay, so once I think I'm good, I'm going to hit Escape, and then I got to go around the whole thing and make sure I have no holes in it. And I want to make sure that the front and back polygon count is the same, so everything lines up. Otherwise, let's say I didn't have this one selected, I got to go around and make sure it's selected. Now, holding Shift allows you to add to your selection. And it's very important that there is no holes in the geometry and you have the same amount of polygons in the front and back, because we're going to cap these holes on the sides after we separate it. So I like it, so I'm going to hit P on the keyboard, separate selection, or you can come down to Mesh, Vertices, and separate right here, selection. So I'm going to come up here and repeat that process, C on the keyboard, C, there we go. Select all these, do something like that. And let's try that, Escape, maybe add to the selection, C, Escape. Okay, so I know I'm missing a selection right here, these guys. It looks like there's no other holes or anything. Just want to maybe add a little bit more to the selection. C. And maybe take some of this out. Escape. Make sure I have equal number and no holes. Looks good. Okay, so let's hit P again. Separate selection. Let's come out of edit mode, tab on the keyboard, and we're going to come out of wireframe mode. Okay, so I'm going to select this piece, Shift H on the keyboard, and we're going to go into edit mode, tab. We're going to go into edge mode because we need to cap all these edges. So there's a couple ways to do this. Let me hit period on the keyboard to frame what I have selected. Otherwise, you got to go view. Right here, view selected, that'll frame it. Okay, so the way this is going to work is I need to fill these holes. So let's start somewhere that's simple. All right, so there's several ways to do this. Number one, let me grab this edge and hit F on the keyboard. That automatically fills in between just two selections. Now you can't do more than two because watch what happens when, let's say I have 4. It doesn't add the segment in between them, so that's not good. I could do W with more than, let me try W here. Let's say I select these two and hit W. This is called bridge edge loops. And that automatically bridges them and fills them in. So that's pretty cool. That's found under Mesh, Edges, Bridge Edge Loops. Okay. So let's say this whole section here, I'm going to hold down Alt and click to loop select. Now if I go Control F, it comes into the face mode. So this is the F that we used. Alt F creates what they call a fill with triangles, and that's not what I'm after, but it still works better than the normal F. If I do Control F again, so that's Alt F, then you have just the grid fill. So I'm going to click that, and that creates, without triangles, the actual grid fill I need. So that's pretty cool. All right, so that's a fast way of patching up some of these holes. So if I grab these two, let me just, oops, select F, Alt F, Control F, and grid fill. Now this is also found under Mesh, Faces, and Grid, etc., etc. Okay. So you just keep going to fill each piece. F, F, F. All right. So the other side. So let me grab this piece and F. Then loop select this, Control F, grid fill. This piece, F, Control F, F. And if I have an issue with accidentally moving some things when I select them, I can just activate that tool, and that way I don't accidentally move anything. And Control F, grid fill. Okay, so that's all done. Make sure both sides are finished. Ooh, did I miss? No, let's fill. Okay, so I'm going to go Alt H to come out of this. Sorry, I have to come out of edit mode, object mode, and then Alt H to unhide all. And let's go ahead and do that to the other piece as well. So this piece here, Shift H, and moving forward. So edge mode. Or sorry, we got to go to edit mode, tab on the keyboard, edge mode, and just keep repeating what we did before. Grid fill. Just to do something different, bridge edge loops. Okay, there we have it. All done on that side. Need to do this side. It's all about saving yourself some time. That's why we learn these tools. There you go. Okay, now there's something that you could do to check to make sure there's no holes in it or overlapping vertices, and that is hit vertex mode here, hit A on the keyboard twice to select everything, come down to mesh vertices and do remove doubles. It says 0 vertices removed, so I don't have any overlapping holes or vertices, and it doesn't look like I have any holes, so I'm good to go. Let me go ahead and hit tab to come out of edit mode and Alt H to unhide all. So there we have it. There is our fractured pieces. So before we fracture these pieces with the actual fracture tool, I'm going to come up to File, Save. Okay. Now let's select this piece here and actually go into, let's fracture it. So there's a couple ways. First of all, you need to make sure your fractured is added. So go to File, User Preferences, type in fracture. Okay, so I have both mine checked. You want to have both of them checked. So object, cell fracture, and the fracture tools. I'm going to start with the cell fracture. Sometimes this gets all fooey, so I don't tend to use it, but let's just see what happens if you use it now. So I'm going to scroll all the way up to the top with the object selected. In fact, let's go Shift H to unhide anything that's not selected. And let's go into the Tools panel, Cell Fracture. The first thing I uncheck is new layer or next layer. That it takes everything that it creates and puts it on the next layer down. Let me move this here, and I don't want that. So I'm going to uncheck it, and I'm going to say the amount of pieces, let's say 25 for this. That would be a good amount of pieces. And let's hit OK. So it goes through and breaks it up for me. Now, the front piece is still here, the original, so I'm going to hide it. And you can see here that there is some missing geometry points in here. Now, each piece is its own solid, but for some reason, it decided to give me missing shards in a few places. So technically, if I wanted to do a simulation and I didn't want to have missing pieces in this didn't work. For this, in my case, where I'm actually going to separate this by hand, this is fine. But I know some of you guys might want to run some kind of crazy sim, so this didn't work. So I'm going to go Control Z to undo fracture. The next step, because it didn't work, and we're back down to just one object again, is to do spacebar, search, and type in fracture. Okay, so we're going to do fracture object, and we're going to set the amount, the shard amount, to let's say 10. And might as well give it maybe a flat rough. And let's click execute. So it's going to go through and it executed the actual option. So now I can grab each one of these pieces and move them. And you can see here that there are their own pieces. You can see it created this little one right here in the corner. So there are no holes now. Geometry looks a little fooey, but there are no holes. That's the big thing. And it looks like it created some doubles in certain areas. That's not good. So there's some good things and bad things about using either or. In this case, I don't like the way this kind of executed everything, so I'm just going to keep undoing until I get my piece back, and I'm going to use the cell fracture. So I'm going to go back to cell fracture, make sure this is unchecked, and maybe increase the amount of pieces will help decrease the holes in it. So let's go 30, click OK. And it looks like that actually did the spot. Oh, sorry, let's hide the original. Always got to make sure you hide the original. That did it. So all your pieces now are there and there's no extra holes in it. So that's good. So that's one piece. Let's go ahead and hit Shift H to unhide all. Go to this piece here. Alt H unhides all. Shift H hides what's not selected. And let's do the same thing. Let's go to cell fracture. This probably could be only 20 pieces. Click OK. And we're good. Yay. Well, make sure I hide the original. And we're still good. Looking good. So Alt H to unhide all. And the The next piece that we're going to break up is the center piece here, but instead of using fracture tool, I'll actually just use separate and bend and break. But before I do that, let's actually start moving some of these pieces out. So in the video tutorial, you saw me move this stuff. So let me activate the move tool. And let me just bring this stuff out. Oops, did that unhide itself? Oh yeah, because I did the whole Alt-H to unhide all. So let me bring some of these pieces just floating out, because remember, it was broken and damaged. And the piece, almost like an explosion happened. And I'll spend more time moving these things in certain positions, but I'm just bringing them out because I also want to create the damage for this external piece. All right. So let's go ahead and go into edit mode with this piece. And then we want to fill these holes. So let's actually go out of edit mode and hit Shift H to hide everything that's not selected. And let's go ahead and fill these holes using the same techniques that we used before. So tab to go to edit mode, make sure we're on edge mode, and just start filling this in. So let's start with here. Oops, turn off move. Fill, fill, grid fill. There we go. So that's that section. Oops, let's do here. Fill, grid fill, fill, grid fill, bridge loops, come over here. This may or may not grid fill. Oh, there it goes. Wow. Cool beans. All right. I wonder what would happen if I tried to... I was going to say grid fill it, but it's probably not the best idea. Let me try grid filling this. Nope, that definitely did not work out. So F, 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 there we go. Oops. All right, so let me go ahead and hit vertex mode, A twice, and go to vertices and remove doubles. 0 vertices removed, good. And let's come out of this. So let's go tab, Alt H to unhide all. And this is where I would come in. Oops, we need to hide piece number 1. So come back to here. I'm going to hit tab to go back in edit mode. And this is where I would actually go through with my vertex. Let's go A to deselect. And let me go B to drag select over some vertices. Reactivate my move tool. Start positioning these guys. So it's just to break it up to where it's not so smooth. And it looks like it's shattered outward. Probably too far. Maybe bring this down, bring this up. So now let's come out of edit mode. See, I just need to separate these pieces. So maybe this one I can take this and maybe rotate it. Hit tab. Hit B. Deselect B. Oops. So that's how you create the effect of it being damaged on this side. Of course, the shattered pieces we don't have to do this with. Oops. Deselect B. Let me come out of edit mode. Grab this piece. So that's how you're going to go through and break it up. So I'm not going to waste any more of your time to show you how to do that. I mean, that's something that you guys can do without watching me how to do it, especially since you're going to lay yours out probably a little bit differently. But if you remember in the video, I had these shards floating way out here at various different levels. Even push some of these towards this way. Just create some depth, some shattered depth in here. And if I go to render right now, let me actually go into the render mode. You can see here my textures are following through, which is really cool. Go back to solid. Again, I'm not using the one that I photoshopped. Created the actual UV templates, which again, those textures would follow through as well. You just have to create more texture UVs for the sides of this. And then of course go in into your 2D program and texture them with another material, whatever the inside of this metal would look like. So yep, that's pretty much it for the shattering effect and using the fracture tool. Go ahead, I'm going to finish pulling these things out, and I'll come back and show you my layout, and then we'll go into part 7 and start wiring up the sprockets. Actually, before I go any further, let's talk about this face right here. So let me go Alt-H. Oops, sorry, not Alt-H. Make sure this front face is selected. Nope. There we go. So I'm going to go Shift-H, and to break this guy up, you just need to add some geometry. So I'm going to hit Tab. Go into polygon mode, select this polygon, and keep the mouse way out here. Hit I on the keyboard to inset it. Probably something to about there. It just insets on itself. I don't think it's coming off. Nope. Okay. Just looks funny. So let's go ahead and go into edge mode and select this edge. In fact, I'm going to Alt-click all these edges. And we're going to go W and subdivide. You can also find subdivide over here in the tools. Subdivide. Properties, let's just divide it out a couple times. Probably something like that. And that should be good. So let's come out of edit mode, Alt-H. And let me re-hide that piece that's here. H on the keyboard. H. And with this selected again, go into edit mode. And this is where I would go through. Start selecting some polygons in the area that this is supposed to shatter. It's probably too much. Something like that. Hit escape. course, separate it, P in the keyboard. And let's come out of edit mode. So same thing that I was doing before. This piece I would actually separate even more. So tab, C, maybe something like that. And go P, oops, escape, P, separate. Let's go back into the C selection. And go P, first off, escape, then P. And C again, P, oops, escape, P, selection, C again, probably that, escape, P. Let's see, how much of this do I have left? I barely see it. Probably grab these, escape, P. There we go. So I'm going to come out of this mode, tab. And now I can grab each one of these. Their center points are going to be way out here in the center. So this piece right here, the origin's way over here. I don't want it over there. I want it with the piece. So to change that, the shortcut key is Shift-Alt-Control-C. Again, that's Shift-Alt-Control-C. And this is the shortcut menu for set origin. So I can set origin to geometry. Or if you don't have shortcut keys, what you're going to do is go down to Object, Transform, and Origin to Geometry right here. Boom. So now I can position this, rotate it, so on and so forth. And I can even, I would actually go through and turn it into a shard by hitting Tab on the keyboard for edit mode. Make sure I'm in vertex mode and start selecting points and pushing them around. Maybe not so much like that, but just to create it more like it's a piece of shrapnel. Okay. So, like I said, let me hit Tab to come out of edit mode for each one of these pieces. Again, Shift Control Alt C is a shortcut key, and you want to origin to geometry. Or like you come down to Object, Transform, Origin to Geometry, okay? And that will let you to reset the position controller and just go into each one of these, play with the vertex, parts, tab, maybe rotate this on the X. And just keep playing with it. Okay, so you do a little bit up here as well, so there's nothing new. So like I said, I'm going to stop this and come back after I'm done shifting all these pieces around, and then you'll join me for part 7, and then we're going to worry about wiring up sprockets. I'm back, so I just want to go over a few things. You can see I separated out the pieces a little bit more, and I also bent out some of the geometry to make it look like it exploded. So to do this, I use what they call proportional editing in Blender. It's also known in other programs as soft select. All right, so let me show you how I did this. With it selected, I'm going to go into edit mode. That's tab on the keyboard. And you can see here I have these top polygons selected. Now what I did is I scrolled down here to turn on proportional editing. So it's either enable or connected. I'm going to choose connected. Now the best way to work with this tool is to activate either grab, rotate, or scale, not down here, but the actual G, R, or S. Now those tools can be also activated right here in the transform. I suggest you use the shortcut keys, but if you don't have shortcut keys, just to show you, let's do translate, which is the grab. Now you can see here I'm moving it around, and you can see that there's this nice big ring around here, and that's the proportional editing ring, okay? So I can use the middle mouse button to increase or decrease that scale. So that's pretty cool. All right, so that's again the middle mouse button to expand or contract the selection area for the grab. I'm going to right click to cancel. Same thing with rotate. So now that I'm rotating it, let me rotate it, let's say on the Y axis. All right, you can see, and if I increase the scale, it's going to rotate it further down the chain of connections, of the vertices, and if I decrease it. So it's a pretty useful tool. I'm going to right click to deactivate. Now, like I said, it's best to use your shortcut keys, because then when you activate a shortcut key, let's say I activate G right now, I'm already in the center and it's near my mouse. So then I can really see what I'm doing. Same thing, maybe if I rotate over here and hit R on the keyboard, you can see how the scale is affecting it. So that's pretty cool. Again, that is using the scale, rotation, or translate, which is the grab tool. And then the middle mouse button to scale, to increase or decrease the brush size. Now there might be a shortcut key for that. Let me try activating it again. Let me go grab. Let me bring the circle down with the middle mouse button. Let's see, plus or minus on the numeric keypad don't work. Yeah, I don't think they're up, page up and page down. That's going to increase or decrease the brush size on your keyboard. Okay, so that's pretty cool. All right, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. And go ahead and join me for part 7, and we're going to go over wiring the sprockets together, or the gears, however you want to call them. And we'll probably even go over creating some sparks, but that's going to be a completely different conversation when we get to that tutorial. So I will see you soon.